Thank you so much, Dean Wezwa. Welcome, graduates, family members, and friends. On this proud occasion, I'd like to extend my appreciation to our interim dean, our VIPs from Beaumont Health, our distinguished guests, the OUWB faculty, and of course, to Stephen Scharf founding dean, Robert Fulberg. For 1 decade, Dean Fulberg oversaw the beginning of our first new medical school in Michigan for more than half a century. Please give him congratulations. His seminal contributions and legacy are clearly evident in the students who are graduating today and will forever be an important part of what makes OUWB an important and unique and distinctive school among the world's medical schools. I want to thank you for inviting me to share in one of the most memorable and significant moments in your medical school careers and in your lives. You know, few moments compare to this one, and I know because I once stood in your place, and like you, I felt the pride of accomplishment coupled with excitement and just a little bit of anxiety about what would happen next. For me, I was moving to a new city where I had never lived before. I was going to work in a hospital I had known nothing about and to work with people I had never met. I was going to live with a man who was going to become my husband, but I was filled with all kinds of self-doubt. Would I be able to survive the rigors of residency? Could I live in a city with no family or friends? Was I really ready to get married? And most importantly of all, would someone ever really trust me to be a good doctor, their child's doctor? You know, there's so much that comes with the title doctor, and you have worked so hard to get to this moment, and if you can wait just a little bit longer, soon you will be called doctor. But you're only part of the way through your journey, and along this path, you'll encounter some of the most incredible moments of joy, satisfaction, accomplishment, and reward. And these incredible moments will come during some long and grueling hours. You'll experience pain, suffering, disappointment, and tragedy. You'll also have a front row seat to the entire tapestry of all that is good and all that is bad in medicine and all that makes us human beings. The mystery and the miracle of life. You'll be exalted when you save a life, but you'll be disappointed when you fail to do so. I know this too, because in the course of my career, I experienced all of this and more. But I wouldn't trade 1 day of my life or my career as a physician for any other, because medicine is the most noble of professions. When you applied to medical school more than 4 years ago, I bet there's a good chance that somewhere in your application you wrote something like this: I want to be a doctor because I like science. I'm also good at fill in the blank: rock climbing, painting, Spanish, violin, gardening, golfing, ukulele, right? I volunteered in South America, the inner city, in an emergency room, Africa, and most importantly, I really care about people, and I want to help them. Today, as you embark on the next step on your journey, I want to remind you of what you wrote on your application and your early motives to become a doctor. Those ideas to help people, they may seem trite today, but those ideas, they're still really good ideas. And I want you to continue to be inspired to do remarkable things with your lives and to leave a lasting impact on the lives of others. You should know that we selected you to be in our medical school, not only because you're brilliant academically, not only because you might have won a triathlon, or because you play the ukulele, or because you speak 5 languages. We chose you to attend OUWB because, in addition to all of those things, you also demonstrated to us that you have compassion and empathy. At OUWB, you have learned the same core curriculum that is taught at all other medical schools, but you've also been trained in our kindness curriculum, a unique curriculum that teaches our students the importance of 3 things: compassion, about collaboration, and about community. And this is atypical among medical schools, and it's a program that makes me, as president, exceptionally proud. You've participated in our COMPASS program, a center for community engagement, which identifies the needs of vulnerable populations, and we encouraged you to actively impact the lives of others much less fortunate than yourselves. And during your participation in this program, you've done some exceptional things, like participate in the student-run free clinic, the Bernstein Clinic, and the program for Hispanic children in Pontiac. And you were fortunate to train in a medical school with this unique curriculum that has nurtured and polished your natural traits to enhance your ability to care for others. So today, I want to focus my time with you talking about altruism. I know that you came to OUWB with a selfless concern for the welfare and betterment of others. You came here with a burning desire to make a difference in the world. But I also know that now, 4 years later, many of you leave here with enormous college and medical school debt. Some of you are married, some of you have children, and you've already experienced the rigors of a demanding schedule. But the rigors of residency are even greater. I happen to have a clear personal recollection of these demands and the tension that they caused in my own life, and I worry that all of these factors could chip away at your altruistic tendencies. And because these things worry me a little bit, I want you to know my thoughts on this today. In 1851, the philosopher Auguste Comte coined the word altruism to mean an unselfish regard for the welfare of others. How could the trait of altruism evolve? After all, Darwinian evolution is about survival of the fittest, not survival of the finest, the kindest, the nicest, or the gentlest. And yet, altruism exists across the entire evolutionary spectrum of the animal kingdom, especially in humans. Children as young as 18 months of age exhibit altruistic behaviors. In an experiment published in the prestigious journal Science, an investigator inadvertently dropped clothespins or knocked over books during the course of just performing ordinary tasks. And each time there was such an accident, every one of 24 toddlers immediately ran over and offered help to pick up the dropped items. Interestingly, though, if the investigator didn't appear to need the help, the children didn't offer it. So studies like these lead me to conclude that we're born with innate altruism, the capacity to want to help others. This means that altruism is likely in our genes. It means that we can nurture these traits further from early childhood through medical school and beyond. And yet, the age-old quandary remains. Are we, as the 18th century philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau contended, noble savages whose best intentions are corrupted by civilization? Or are we, as the 17th century philosopher Thomas Hobbes contended, fundamentally selfish brutes who needed civilization to rein in our best impulses? Turns out that human altruistic behavior and its rewards can be mapped to certain brain regions. In a study from Emory, functional MRI scans were used to examine the brains of women while they were performing acts of mutual cooperation. And when they did that, the parts of the brain that are associated with reward processing and pleasure were activated. These are the same brain gratification centers that play a role in the pleasure we experience when we eat good food, when we have sex, when we play video games, when we listen to music, as well as drug and alcohol addiction. This means that there are intrinsic biological rewards when people do good things. So can this explain why some people choose to be altruistic? Is it possible that it induces pleasure in the individual and that this kind of pleasure can be addictive? W.H. Auden said, "We're all here on earth to help others, but what I can't figure out is what are the others here for?" Ayn Rand, though, said she was the lead thinker of the objective system called objectivism, the philosophical system, and she wondered if altruism is really all true, because she said that altruism should be rejected. And she believed that every person should primarily look out only for himself or herself. She claimed that ethics ultimately consisted merely of self-interest. Each individual should only do whatever benefits himself or herself alone. But in contrast, the great physician Maimonides said that charitable acts should be done anonymously with no benefit to the recipient and no tangible gain to the donor. And yet there's a third school of thought expressed by the French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas, who opined that the individual should do things for others, but it is in self-interest. But he believed that there is a balance between self-interest and compassion for others. Personally, I'm a student of the Levinas school of thought. Because of its focus on balance, everything in life comes down to finding the right balance, a balance between the personal and the professional, a balance between time at work and time at home, a balance between doing things for oneself and doing things for others. And as physicians, we need to strive for a balance between the egotistic and the altruistic motives, a balance between selfish and selfless actions. And I want you to preserve the idealism and the spirit of altruism that you had when you first came to OUWB. It is possible to care for other people and care for yourself. And in fact, in order to care for other people, you must take care of yourself. It's acceptable to enjoy the emotional, spiritual, and financial rewards that come from the practice of medicine while also focusing on the care of others. And often it's when we're caring for others that we find that the benefit actually accrues to ourselves. 8 years ago, my husband was killed in a car accident. My own grief was lessened when I realized that I could help others less fortunate than I was, and when I focused on the fact that many others had suffered much more than I had. Empathy and compassion are vital for physicians to understand a patient's suffering, and to becoming a great physician. So, can you do good and do well at the same time? Is it still altruism if you, as a physician, do good things for your patients, but also do well by profiting from this work? I believe that you can be a good physician and also do well for yourself and your families. But remember why you chose to become a physician and never lose sight of your altruism, compassion, and empathy. As you start your residencies, I know there will be times when you will question whether medicine is really about serving and helping others. I suspect you will have moments of reservation. I suspect you will find that you will probe and re-examine your decision to become a physician. And no doubt, residency is intense, it's rigorous, demanding, and difficult. And there will be many other things that are likely to disturb you too. For some of you, it may be that after 4 years of medical school, you will be disappointed that you still have so much to learn. For others, you will become exhausted by the schedule. Others will become frustrated that there's still so much to learn in this field that you've selected. And others will become frustrated by your incompetence in doing certain procedures required to become skilled in your specialty of choice. And I suspect that every one of you will get frustrated at least once by the electronic medical record system, or by a nurse who wakes you up at 3 in the morning, or even by your own patient's illnesses, or by the competing demands of home and work. I remember being absolutely exhausted as a resident, and our mantra at the time was, just keep them alive till 8:05. And all of you will be terribly troubled to discover that medicine has warts and imperfections. We do not cure all diseases. We do not prevent all pain and suffering. And we make errors. And all these things will make you uncomfortable. And you will need to learn how to get comfortable with those very things that make you uncomfortable. For me, it has taken many years to get comfortable with the discomfort. 3 months after I graduated from medical school, when I was a resident, I almost quit medicine. One of my patients was a 7-year-old girl with leukemia, and she died. And I believed it was because of me. I thought, if only I had more skill, if only I had more knowledge, if only I was a better doctor, I would have been able to save this child's life. I was distraught, and I concluded that I would never be a competent physician who would be able to help others. Fortunately, there was a psychiatrist who was helping this child's mother cope with her grief, and she helped me to recognize that the very agony that I was experiencing over this child's death would one day help me to care for many other children as a pediatrician. And I'm so glad that she did help me through that period, because then I went on to have the privilege of caring for thousands of other children and patients over the course of my career. But even today, there are many things about medicine that make me uncomfortable and that I find excruciatingly difficult. For example, I am disturbed by the inequities in our healthcare system. I'm disturbed by the high costs and lack of access that many have to healthcare, by the burnout and high rates of depression, drug abuse, and suicide in healthcare providers. I'm disturbed by the serious rates of medical errors in our healthcare systems. Several years ago, when I was the CEO of a major hospital system, I met with the family of a child who had a congenital heart disease and who died following what should have been an uncomplicated surgical procedure. The parents wanted me to explain to them why their child had died. After the case was analyzed in great detail, I could only tell them that their child should not have died. We had made errors, a perfect storm of errors that were made by physicians, nurses, the pharmacy, and our hospital system. The uncomfortable fact is that there is fallibility in medicine. As Atul Gawande, the American surgeon and writer, describes in his book, Complications, there is a central truth about medicine. All doctors make terrible mistakes. The important question isn't how to keep bad physicians from harming patients. It's how to keep good physicians from harming patients. Like me, you will have to learn how to get comfortable with the uncomfortable so that eventually you can provide your patients with comfort. And actually, not only do I think that you should get comfortable with discomfort, but you should embrace it. For it's actually discomfort that leads us to strive to learn more, to discover more, to do more, to work harder, and ultimately to do it better. As you pursue this next chapter, in addition to getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, do not forget to preserve and enhance your altruistic tendencies. Remember the satisfaction that you received from your Compass projects. Remember that you have chosen to be a sacred healer in order to serve and to provide comfort to others. And remember to find that balance between egotistic and altruistic motives and between selfish and selfless actions. Anne Frank said, "How wonderful is it that no one need wait but a single moment before starting to improve the world." So tonight, please take a moment and write down why you became a physician and what kind of contributions you hope to make. Keep that note in a special place and promise yourself that you will look at it often, especially if times get rough. My father is a rabbi committed to social justice and moral clarity, and he told me a parable when I was a child. I return to it often and ponder its lesson to understand my own commitment to being altruistic. The Jordan River flows along the borders of its namesake country, as well as Lebanon, Israel, and Syria. Along the way, the river feeds both the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The Sea of Galilee returns the favor, so to speak, and gives water back to the Jordan River. But the Dead Sea only takes water from the Jordan River, and it gives nothing back in return. It is dead, with no natural outlets. Well, the Sea of Galilee is vibrant. Flora and fauna thrive in the Sea of Galilee. But the Dead Sea has no life. It is unsustainable. In life, you should be like the Sea of Galilee. While we take, we should also remember to give back, and that way we will have so much in return. And now, I'd like to give a word of welcome to those of you who are gathered here today, the loved ones. Thank you so much for everything you have done to help your graduate reach this glorious day. They couldn't have done it without your love, your support, and your encouragement. Their futures will be incredibly stimulating, exciting, and gratifying, but it might also be challenging, physically and emotionally exhausting, and there will be moments of misgivings, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Remember to continue to be generous with your support and love, even if you might not be sure it's being reciprocated. I promise you that one day it will be. And now, precious graduates, medicine is a sacred profession. I, for one, feel extraordinarily fortunate to be a physician. Of all the things I'm proud to be, woman, daughter, administrator, my self-identity is linked more to being my children's mother and to being a physician than to anything else. Starting today, you too have a new identity. Imagine that even at this very moment, as we celebrate your entry into the fellowship of physicians, someone, somewhere on this planet is on a track to intersect with you, and that person will be calling you their doctor, someone who will put unconditional faith in your ability to diagnose, to treat, and to cure, as well as to comfort. You won't disappoint them. The famous Muslim Maulana Eddie, who is also known as the Angel of Mercy, and he was nominated several times for a Nobel Peace Prize, said, "Everyone's responsibility is to take care of others. That's what being human means. If more people thought that way, our problems would be solved. You have a responsibility to care for others, and I cannot think of any better physicians than you to take care of the ones we love." Thank you.